In the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, more than 500 kilometers from mainland Europe, lie 9 islands born from the Earth's fiery core. They push themselves up from the ocean floor, layer upon layer of lava, piling upon layer of lava over millions of years, until they finally rose above the surface. This is the Azores, where the ground has never truly cooled. The people here cook with heat rising from deep beneath the earth. They bathe in natural hot springs just steps from their homes, and they know the ground beneath their feet can tremble at any moment, not because someone warns them, but because they have lived with it for so long that they are no longer afraid. By all logic, this should be a place defined by danger and destruction. Yet for centuries, more than 240 people have made these islands their home. Every year, millions of visitors come to the Azores, drawn not only by the crater lakes nestled inside volcanic calderas, but also to understand why people choose to live in a place like this. And the answer is not as simple as you might think. Amid the vast blue expanse of the North Atlantic, 9 small islands lie quietly. More than 500 kilometers from mainland Europe, they belong to Portugal, yet seem to exist almost beyond any world we have ever known. But that seemingly disadvantageous location gave the Azores a role no one could have expected. Centuries ago, these islands became an essential stopover for expeditions and ships crossing the Atlantic Ocean. Here, they replenished their food and fresh water supplies and waited for favorable winds before continuing their voyages of exploration. The ocean brought more than isolation. It also carried people, cultures, and new beginnings, gradually giving rise to the first communities across the archipelago. Every place has a story of how it came to be, and for the Azores, that story did not begin with people or the ocean, but with the immense power of the earth. Millions of years ago, where the North American, Eurasian, and African tectonic plates meet, streams of glowing lava repeatedly erupted from the floor of the Atlantic Ocean. Layer upon layer, they cooled, accumulated, and eventually rose above the sea, forming the 9 volcanic islands that make up the Azores today. That power is etched into Pico Island, where Portugal's highest volcano still towers above the sea and sky like a colossal natural landmark. Every layer of rock on Pico bears the marks of lava flows that swept across the island millions of years ago, a reminder that this entire archipelago was born from fire. But time has its own way of healing every scar. At Sete Cidades, what was once a massive volcanic crater is now home to 2 tranquil lakes, one blue and one green, resting peacefully within the ancient caldera. If Sete Cidades is a memory of the past, then Furnas reveals that the earth here is still very much alive, Columns of white steam continue to rise quietly from cracks in the ground, while hot mineral springs still simmer beneath the surface. Beneath Terceira Island, Algar do Carvão opens the door to a silent yet mysterious world. Descending into this volcanic chimney feels like traveling back through time, returning to the moment when the first lava flows were still shaping the Azores. Mineral-covered rock walls and solidified lava formations quietly preserve the memory of the day this archipelago was born. Perhaps the greatest wonder is that what once brought destruction eventually became the foundation of life. Fertile basaltic soil nourishes lush green fields. Geothermal energy carries warmth from deep within the earth to the people above. Ancient volcanic craters have become precious freshwater lakes. From fire, nature created a land fertile enough for people to put down roots, build their lives, and preserve their homeland through countless generations. The Azores were born from fire, and the people who live here have learned to live with it. A volcanic island in the middle of the North Atlantic would usually bring to mind rocks, strong winds, and a harsh climate. But the Azores are different. That wonder begins with the Gulf Stream, carrying warmth from the tropics. This ocean current helps the Azores maintain a mild climate throughout the year. Summers are cool, and winters are rarely freezing. Clouds are caught on the mountain slopes, then quietly turn into rain and mist, silently nourishing every forest, every stream, and the lush green pastures through all 4 seasons. Because of this, nature here is always full of life. The result is a volcanic archipelago that looks like a giant garden in the middle of the ocean. On São Miguel Island, lush green pastures stretch all the way to the horizon, interwoven with ancient laurisilva forests that have existed for millions of years. Waterfalls pour down from basalt cliffs. Crystal-clear lakes rest inside ancient volcanic craters, and rows of hydrangeas burst into bloom every summer, creating a landscape unlike anywhere else in Europe and giving São Miguel its name. The Green Island, but what makes scientists call the Azores the Noah's Ark of plants is not just that surface beauty. Thanks to millions of years of isolation from the mainland, this archipelago became a refuge for many ancient and rare plant species that no longer exist in many other parts of the world. Today, the Azores are home to around 411 endemic plant species, found only on these islands. Walking beneath ancient tree canopies covered in moss, ferns, and lichens, with sunlight filtering only through small gaps in the leaves, feels like stepping back into a quiet, untouched world from prehistoric times. It is this exceptional ecological value that helped the islands of Flores, Corvo, Graciosa, and São Jorge earn recognition from UNESCO as World Biosphere Reserves. This is not only recognition of the beauty of nature, but also because they are among the last remaining pieces of an older world. Before people came to the Azores to watch whales, they came here to kill them. For centuries, the Azores were one of the largest whaling centers in the Atlantic. Local men rowed small boats out into the middle of the ocean, using hand-thrown harpoons to bring down these giant animals, not because they were brave, but because it was the only way to feed their families. Whaling ended in the late 20th century, and less than a few decades later, the very fishermen who once hunted whales, or their descendants, began taking visitors out to sea to watch the animals their ancestors once chased. It is one of the strangest reversals in the history of this archipelago. The waters around the islands are one of the most important whale migration corridors in the world, where nearly 30 species of whales and dolphins have been recorded, equal to almost 1/3 of all whale and dolphin species on Earth. At certain times of the year, massive backs occasionally rise above the surface, leaving behind long trails of waves across the deep blue ocean. Alongside the whales, pods of dolphins also often appear, swimming close to the surface, cutting through the waves, and sometimes running parallel to the small boats of local people. They are not trained at all. It is entirely their wild instinct. On the coastal cliffs, thousands of seabirds circle the steep basalt rock formations near the edge of the waves, nesting in narrow crevices carved by wind and ocean over thousands of years. Together, they create one of the Azores' most distinctive images: life clinging to cliffs that seem meant only for crashing waves and powerful winds. Beneath the deep blue water, deep coral reefs, schools of small fish, and nutrient-rich ocean currents quietly sustain an almost untouched marine world around the Azores, where the archipelago's isolation has unintentionally become a shield, helping nature preserve the wildness that many other seas have gradually lost. For a very long time, the Azores belonged to no one. It was not until the early 15th century, when the Age of Discovery began and Portuguese sails started reaching farther across the Atlantic, that the Azores gradually appeared on European nautical maps. Around 1427, the navigator Diogo de Silves is believed to have been the first European to discover the archipelago, beginning the journey that brought people to this isolated land. However, the history of the Azores may have begun even earlier than that. A scientific study published in 2021, based on the analysis of sediment layers in an ancient lake on Corvo Island, put forward a remarkable hypothesis. Researchers suggested that the Vikings may have reached the Azores as early as the 9th century, nearly 700 years before the Portuguese. If true, the Azores were not a land that was simply discovered, but a land that had been known, then lost, and then found again. The official version of history begins around 1427, when the navigator Diogo de Silves was recorded as the first European to set foot on the archipelago. After recognizing the strategic location and potential of the islands, Prince Henry the Navigator encouraged expeditions and plans to develop the Azores. Not long afterward, Gonçalo Velho Cabral was assigned to continue surveying the islands and bring the first groups of settlers to places such as Santa Maria and São Miguel, opening the first chapter of human history in this land. Those pioneers did not find a homeland already prepared for them. Before them stood dense forests where no human foot had ever stepped, mountain slopes covered in volcanic rock, and a natural world that was both generous and harsh. Discovering the Azores was only the beginning. The far greater challenge was how people could put down roots and live on an isolated archipelago in the middle of the Atlantic, where everything had to begin from nothing. They began cutting down the first forests, gathering basalt stones one by one to build homes that could withstand the sea winds, clearing the fertile land left behind by volcanoes, and sowing the first wheat crops. Grapevines, cattle, sheep, and goats were also gradually brought across the sea to the Azores, step by step creating a stable food supply. Everything they needed had to come from the mainland, and every ship could take weeks to arrive, or never arrive at all. And yet, nature never stopped testing them. Fierce storms from the Atlantic, earthquakes, and even volcanoes continued to quietly remind them that human beings were only a very small part of this land. Over time, simple houses gradually gathered into villages. Small churches rang their bells each morning. Children grew up on the very islands their ancestors had cleared and cultivated, while the fields became greener with every harvest season. It was the perseverance of these ordinary people that turned an archipelago born from fire into a home for hundreds of thousands of people, laying the foundation for the Azorean community that continues to endure to this day. Through 4K footage, the Azores appear as peaceful small villages set between the sea, pastures, and cloud-covered mountain slopes where the rhythm of life seems to slow with the wind and the waves of the North Atlantic. Whitewashed houses stand out against green pastures and black basalt stone, with door frames, wall corners, and fences built from ancient lava. Red-tiled roofs appear among hydrangea gardens, while in front of each home lies the sea, open pasture, or a mountainside covered in clouds. On Pico Island, many houses are still built entirely from black volcanic stone, a material that has helped them withstand strong winds, salt air, and the humid climate for hundreds of years. Meanwhile, on Saint George Island, many small communities have formed on fajas, flat strips of land lying directly beneath towering cliffs. From their front porches, residents can see waves striking the base of the cliffs, while behind them rise green mountains covered in clouds. The community spirit here is called Visinhansa by the people of the Azores, a tradition that has endured for generations. When a family harvests grapes in the stone vineyards of Pico Island, rebuilds a basalt wall after a storm, or needs extra hands to bring the cattle back into the barn before the rain arrives, neighbors often appear naturally. No invitation is needed, and no calculation is involved, because for them, helping one another is a normal part of life on small islands in the middle of the ocean. It is this bond that creates a sense of peace rarely found anywhere else. In places where storms can isolate an entire community for days, connection is not a choice, it is a condition for survival. The volcanic soil of the Azores is not only fertile, it has also compelled its people to be creative. Every morning, as the sun rises above the horizon, the pastures, fishing harbors, and fields gradually come to life, marking the beginning of another familiar workday that has been repeated through countless generations. On São Miguel en Terceira, the day begins in pastures still covered with morning dew. Farmers quietly open wooden gates, allowing herds of dairy cattle to make their way onto vast grazing lands spread across hundreds of hectares of fertile basaltic soil. The sound of cowbells echoes through the peaceful landscape, while milk collection trucks stop at one farm after another before delivering fresh milk to local processing cooperatives. Thanks to its favorable natural conditions, the Azores now produce more than 30% of Portugal's total milk supply. The famous São Jorge cheeses continue to be aged using traditional methods that have endured for centuries. Their distinctive flavor cannot be recreated anywhere else, because nowhere else has the same soil, the same climate, and the same cattle. At fishing ports such as Rabo de Peixe, Horta, and Madalena, boats leave the harbor before dawn, beginning another familiar day on the waters of the Atlantic. After hours at sea, their holds gradually fill with tuna, swordfish, mackerel, octopus, and many other kinds of seafood. When they return to port, the sounds of engines, nets being hauled ashore, and people calling to one another as baskets of fish are unloaded have long been part of daily life in these coastal communities. The people of the Azores rely on more than pastures and the sea. They have also learned how to turn some of the harshest landscapes into a source of life. On Pico Island, Thousands of low basalt stone walls have been built by hand to form small enclosures known as cuirass, protecting grapevines from strong winds and salt spray carried in from the Atlantic. Seen from above, the entire coastline resembles a giant black stone chessboard. Amid what appears to be a barren field of black rock, grapevines continue to flourish, producing wines with the distinctive character of volcanic soil. This unique cultural landscape has been recognized by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site, standing as a testament to human creativity and perseverance in the face of nature. On São Miguel Island, the Guarana and Porto Formoso tea plantations continue to blanket the hillsides overlooking the sea. Each harvest season, young tea leaves are picked by hand before being taken to the factory, where they are rolled, fermented, and dried using a process that has remained unchanged for more than a century. Also on this island, Azorean pineapples are grown in glass greenhouses for nearly 2 years before reaching perfect ripeness. That patience has produced agricultural products with a flavor unlike any other. Today, many people in the Azores have found their future in the beauty of their own homeland. Fishermen have become whale-watching guides. Trails around volcanic craters welcome visitors from around the world, and historic homes have opened their doors to travelers from every corner of the globe. Instead of exploiting nature, the people of the Azores have chosen to protect it, allowing it to sustain their lives in return. After millions of years, the volcanoes of the Azores no longer roar or erupt violently as they did when the archipelago was first born. And yet, their power has never disappeared. It has only quietly taken on another form, silently accompanying human life on each island. In the Furnace Valley on São Miguel Island, people do not need to light a fire to cook the dishes of the Azores. Every morning, on the shore of Lagoa das Furnas, large pots are placed into steaming geothermal holes and then covered with earth. For hours afterward, heat from deep beneath the ground slowly cooks meat, sausages, potatoes, cabbage, and other vegetables, creating cozido das furnas with its distinctive aroma without the need for a single flame. That energy also finds its way into many other parts of life. In Ribeira Grande, geothermal steam is harnessed to generate electricity, lighting thousands of homes on São Miguel Island. Not far from there, mineral pools, such as Poça da Dona Beija and Parque Terra Nostra, remain warm throughout the year. After a day of work, people soak in amber-colored water surrounded by tropical gardens, letting their bodies relax amid rising steam and the faint scent of minerals in the air. What is special is that the people of the Azores have never taken these gifts for granted. They understand that the heat beneath the ground, the mineral springs, and the fertile land are all legacies that nature spent millions of years creating. Instead of exploiting them to exhaustion, they choose to use them with restraint, so that this energy can continue to serve the lives of future generations. The volcanoes of the Azores no longer erupt, but they are still working in every meal, in every light bulb that glows each evening, and in the warm waters where people have soaked for generations. In the Azores, distance is not measured in kilometers, it is measured in the time of a ferry crossing. Between the 9 islands of the Azores, there are no bridges or roads connecting them. To reach a neighboring island, people have to take a ferry or board small propeller planes that glide across the ocean. For them, the sea is not a boundary that divides, but a familiar road of everyday life. Each day, at harbors such as Horta, Madalena, and Velas, ferries depart one after another, carrying residents, cars, agricultural products, and goods to nearby islands. In the sky, SATA Air Azores flights continuously take off and land, connecting small communities separated by dozens, even hundreds of kilometers across the ocean. It is a rhythm of life that repeats day after day, keeping the 9 islands connected as one shared homeland. Some students leave their island to continue their studies on a larger island, and every trip home is a ferry crossing. Some patients who need surgery must travel to another island because their own does not have enough medical equipment. Some families cross the sea on weekends just to share a meal together, because that is the only way to see one another. Living on a small island means everything comes with the cost of isolation, but it also means that when people meet, they have truly made an effort to reach one another. In the vastness of the North Atlantic, where the ocean and volcanoes constantly remind people of how small they are, the people of the Azores have long found a special anchor for the soul. Over more than 5 centuries, faith has not only been present in ancient churches, but has become part of everyday life, helping generations remain steady before forces that human beings cannot control. Across the Azores, from Ponta Delgada on São Miguel Island and Angra do Heroísmo on Terceira, to small villages along the coast, church bell towers still rise quietly among whitewashed rooftops. Every morning and every evening, the sound of bells echoes through the valleys, passing over pastures, harbors, and mountain slopes before blending with the waves of the Atlantic. For many Azoreans, it is not only a call to Mass, but also a sound that has followed them throughout their lives, reminding them of home, family, and values that have never faded. That faith is present in very ordinary moments. Before a boat leaves the harbor for distant waters, many fishermen still quietly make the sign of the cross before starting the engine. Every Sunday, families put on their finest clothes and walk together into church to attend Mass, as a tradition passed down from one generation to the next. In many homes, wooden crosses, statues of the Virgin Mary, or images of the saints are still placed in the most honored spaces, quietly accompanying the daily life of each family. On Terceira Island, the Imperios, small chapels painted in vivid red, blue, and yellow appear among streets and villages like distinctive marks of the archipelago. And on the shore of Lagoa das Furnas, the chapel of Nossa Senhora das Vitórias has quietly reflected on the surface of the lake for more than a century. These structures are not only architectural heritage, but also places that preserve countless prayers, hopes, and memories of generations of Azorians who grew up between the ocean and volcanoes. Every year, from spring to early summer, the Azores enter a time that locals simply call festival season. And for them, it is not just a figure of speech, it is a reality marked on the calendar. The largest and most sacred celebration is the Festas do Espírito Santo, the Festival of the Holy Spirit, held across all 9 islands from around May through September each year. In front of the Imperios, solemn processions move slowly through the streets to the sound of music, church bells, and prayers. Shimmering silver crowns are carefully carried as treasured heirlooms, while a child from the community is chosen to wear the crown and become the Emperor of the Holy Spirit for the day. This tradition is not a symbol of power, but a reminder that even a child can represent what is most sacred. After the solemn ceremonies comes the warmest moment of the festival. From early morning, enormous pots fill the communal kitchens with rising steam, where beef, bread, and mint are slowly simmered for hours to prepare the traditional Holy Spirit soup. When the celebration comes to an end, bowls of hot soup are handed to everyone, from the elderly and children to visitors setting foot in the Azores for the very first time. No one pays, and no one is left behind. Here, a shared meal is how faith is expressed through simple acts of generosity and compassion. If the Festival of the Holy Spirit embodies faith and charity, then summer on Terceira Island comes alive with the Tirada à Corda, the traditional rope bull festival that has existed since at least 1622. Unlike many forms of traditional bullfighting in Spain, this tradition takes place in the streets and emphasizes control and skill rather than violence. The bull is released into the village streets, but it is always restrained by a long rope held by experienced men known as pastores. That rope is not only a means of controlling danger, but also the boundary that keeps the challenge from becoming a fight to the death. From balconies, windows, and rooftops, people watch amid cheers, while local young men step into the streets to test their courage and agility against the bull's sudden charges. What sets Tirada à Corda apart from every other form of bullfighting in the world is that the bull is not killed. After each event, it is led back to its pen, and the following season, it may return to the very same street once again. This is not a spectacle of death. It is a game between people and nature, repeated every summer for centuries. On File Island, the festive atmosphere takes on an entirely different character. Along the Horta Marina, thousands of colorful paintings cover nearly every meter of the concrete walls, left behind by sailors from around the world before continuing their journeys across the Atlantic. Some paintings bear the names of ships, some display national flags, and others are simply messages wishing for safe passage. According to maritime tradition, leaving Horta without adding a small painting is considered bad luck. Over the decades, the entire marina has become a giant diary, telling the story of countless voyages and the special role the Azores have played along international sea routes. Each festival season also marks the time when many Azoreans living in the United States, Canada, or mainland Portugal return home. Ferries and flights become busier. Quiet houses fill once again with laughter, and family tables are reunited after months or even years apart. After more than 5 centuries in the middle of the North Atlantic, the Azores are still part of Portugal, but they are not entirely Portuguese, and of course, they know it. The people of the Azores still speak Portuguese, but each island carries its own accent and intonation, shaped by hundreds of years of isolation. After just a few words of greeting, many locals can recognize whether someone comes from São Miguel, Terceira, Pico, or File. These seemingly small differences have become part of their identity, just as each island has its own character while still belonging to the Azores. Music is the same. During festivals or family gatherings, the sound of the 12-string viola da terra rises among folk songs and the chamarita dance that has endured for generations. These simple melodies bring more than joy. They preserve the memory of an older Azores, where grandparents once sang, parents once danced, and children today continue to keep it alive as part of who they are. That identity is preserved through very ordinary things. In many families, hands weathered by time still carefully embroider tablecloths and handkerchiefs using traditional techniques, then pass each stitch down to their children and grandchildren. Many Azoreans have left the islands, going to Lisbon, to the United States, and to Canada. The Azorean communities abroad in Massachusetts and Rhode Island are large enough to maintain these very festivals on American soil, in the same way their ancestors once did back home. Every summer, they return to their roots. An elderly man sits on his front porch, looking out to sea. A child learns to play the viola da terra from his grandfather. A boat leaves the harbor after its captain has made the sign of the cross. These things do not belong in a museum. They are still happening every day across 9 islands in the middle of the Atlantic. Isolation has helped the Azores preserve their untouched beauty for more than 5 centuries. But that very distance in the North Atlantic also means that life here has always followed a rhythm very different from mainland Portugal. For the people of the Azores, some things that may seem ordinary can take much longer to reach. Goods must cross thousands of kilometers of ocean before arriving on the islands. Many services are still concentrated on the larger islands, and in more distant places, such as Flores or Corvo, even giving birth, one of the most natural moments in human life, may require a flight to File or São Miguel to receive full medical care. This is not an exception. It is the reality of life on the smallest islands of the archipelago, where distance is not measured in kilometers, but in weather, flight schedules, and luck. Hidden beneath the peaceful appearance of green fields and crater lakes is a land that has never truly stood still. Located at the meeting point of three major tectonic plates, the Azores are one of the most geologically active regions in the North Atlantic, where earthquakes and volcanoes have always been part of life. The history of the archipelago has also been changed many times by that power. In 1957, the Capeliños volcano on Fayal Island began erupting and continued for 13 months. Volcanic ash covered fields, more than 300 homes were destroyed or buried, and large areas of farmland could no longer be used, forcing around 2,000 people to leave their homeland in search of a new life across the Atlantic. In just over a year, not only did the landscape of Fayal change, but the fate of an entire community also took a different turn. More recently, in 2022, São Jorge Island recorded more than 30,000 small earthquakes in just a few weeks. Authorities had to raise the alert level, thousands of people left high-risk areas, and for many days, the entire island lived with the feeling of waiting for an eruption that could happen at any moment. Although the volcano never finally awakened, that crisis still reminded residents that beneath the calm beauty of the Azores, the Earth has never truly stopped moving. And yet, what is admirable is that the people of the Azores have never turned their backs on this land. They have built geological monitoring systems, prepared for emergencies, and continued their lives with the calmness of people who have grown used to living alongside the power of nature. In the Azores, the fear of earthquakes or volcanoes has never disappeared, but it has also never been enough to make people abandon their homeland. For many people, these islands are simply too small to offer enough opportunities for education, careers, and the future, so they choose to move to mainland Portugal, elsewhere in Europe or North America. According to the OECD's 2025 report, Preparing for Demographic Change in the Azores, Portugal, the population of the Azores declined by approximately 7% between 2010 and 2023. That number is reflected in classrooms with fewer students, villages with more elderly residents, and families gradually growing accustomed to having their children and grandchildren living far from home. These are the quietest signs of a community slowly becoming smaller from within. When young people leave, the Azores lose more than workers. They also lose new ideas, creativity, and the next generation to carry on traditional ways of life. Even so, some people choose to return after many years away, bringing back new knowledge to renew the very islands that raised them. Not everyone comes back, but those who do rarely leave again. Before 2015, the Azores had almost no international tourists. After low-cost airlines opened direct routes from Europe and the United States, the number of visitors tripled in less than a decade. Tourism has brought jobs, income, and new opportunities, but it has also created pressure on housing prices. The cost of living, infrastructure, and public services, it has also driven housing prices so high that many local families can no longer afford to buy homes on the very islands where they were born. Old basalt stone houses have become short-term rental properties. Roads that once saw only horse carts and pedestrians now face traffic jams in the summer. For many local residents, especially young families, continuing to stay connected to their homeland is becoming more difficult. What troubles the people of the Azores is not development itself, but how to develop while still preserving green fields, peaceful villages, and untouched nature. Perhaps the greatest challenge for the Azores is not choosing between development and conservation, but finding a way for both to exist together. How many people can the Azores absorb before the very things that brought them here begin to disappear? That is the question the regional government is trying to answer, and no one has found the perfect solution yet. Nature created the Azores, but it is also the most fragile thing these islands must protect. The seas are warming, the weather is becoming increasingly extreme, and invasive species are overwhelming the ancient laurisilva forests. If these forests continue to decline, the Azores will not only lose the habitats of many endemic species, but also gradually lose their ability to capture moisture from clouds and mist to sustain streams throughout the year. As freshwater becomes more fragile, the land becomes more vulnerable to erosion after heavy rains, and the balance that has sustained life on the islands for millions of years will also be threatened. The people of the Azores understand better than anyone that nature is not a backdrop. It is what created them, sustained them, and the only reason people want to come here. Today, the people of the Azores are placing greater emphasis on sustainable development, expanding marine protected areas, restoring native forests, and limiting visitor numbers in the most sensitive areas. Why do they still stay here? Perhaps because, for them, the Azores are not only a place to live, they are home, family memory, a familiar voice, the small roads they have walked since childhood, and a sense of peace that not every place can replace. Life on these islands has never been easier than life on the mainland. Opportunities may be fewer, distances may be greater, and nature may still set very clear limits. But in return, the people of the Azores find here a kind of fullness all their own, living close to family, close to community, close to nature, and close to their own roots. Some people leave the islands to study, work, and search for a wider future. But after years away from home, many still return, not because the Azores are perfect, but because this place gives them the feeling of belonging. And perhaps that is what has kept people here for more than 5 centuries. In a world that is always changing, the Azores remain a place many can call by the simplest words: my home. From an archipelago born of volcanoes in the middle of the North Atlantic, the Azores have become home to thousands of people over the centuries. These islands leave a lasting impression not only through their volcanic crater lakes, green pastures, and vast ocean, but also through the way their people have learned to adapt, preserve, and live in harmony with nature to build a way of life unlike any other. Some places keep people because of opportunity, while others keep them because of memories, family, and the feeling of belonging. In a world that grows ever faster and more developed, the people of the Azores continue to choose a slower pace of life, strong community ties, and a harmonious relationship with nature. Perhaps that is the greatest treasure these islands continue to preserve. What about you? If one day you had to choose between a life with greater opportunities and a place where you truly feel you belong, which would you choose?